Good morning. I'm Ryan Leopard, and welcome to Our Neutral Voices Presents a Financial Pillar. Joining me on the set today, once again, Mildred Lopez.
Good morning. Good morning.
And Mark Ellington from DR Financial. Mark, welcome back.
Good morning. It's good to be back.
Where were we at last week?
Oh, let's see. In Florida,
Florida?
Port St. Lucie.
Awesome.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Good.
Nice weather.
Very nice.
You brought the weather.
Came back a very cold.
Mhm.
It did warm up rapidly.
Absolutely. Beautiful weekend. So, well, this is our, fifth episode here. We started our financial literacy series. So today we just kind of want to recap the previous episodes, a little bit of takeaways, what we had from there, and just have a general organic conversation around, our financial choices and how we can utilize these tools to maybe help shape and make better decisions with our money. So our first episode, we talked about, financial literacy, which was, the ability to understand and effectively use various financial tools, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. So it's kind of around the definition of what financial literacy means. Okay. Second episode, we talked a little bit about, banking, some responsibilities of the bank, some responsibilities of you as the client of the bank, some ins and outs of that, fees, things like that we hope to go back and, touch on a little bit more in depth because that episode went by really, really quickly. On the third episode, we talked a little bit about our credit system, understanding, our credit score, gave some information on the three credit bureaus out there within our credit system, what goes into the credit bureaus, what reports to it, and, how our credit report is utilized and how it can affect us financially, right? Bad credit can sometimes cost us more when we're applying for insurance, housing, things like that as well. And then last week we talked about a little bit of budgeting and savings, where Mark, I understand you being the budgeting guru, we kind of missed you on that one. But just to fill you in, we talked about, coming up with the why. Why are we creating the budget, right? Sitting down, writing down our finances, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. And then we come up with a plan around our goals. What is it that we're trying to achieve, and a plan on how we can achieve that. And then after a month or two, where we have a track our spending and see where our money's going, and then maybe get an idea of where we can cut back on, right? Those non-essential things that we were talking about last week on the episode. For me, it was my Starbucks. I could cut back on that a little bit, or my Smoothie King, my drinks I had. And then after we've got an idea of that, maybe we sit down and we review and we revise that budget. Are we on track, for meeting our goal? Do we need to extend that goal? Do we need to change our goals, or do we need to find more money? The big thing that we talked about with the budget is the budget's not magic. We're not going to find money that's just out there nowhere that we can bring in, but it's there to help find money that we do have and how we can better manage that money and place it to meet our goals. So knowing that, Mark, anything that you want to add budgeting wise?
Well, I think budgeting is like everything else. Our whole life is about choices and discipline. And the more education we can get, the better choices that we can make. So getting with somebody that can help you with your budget, put something together. And many times it's hard to look at your budget and really discipline yourself. You need somebody else to say, you can really do without that, or you can cut this back, or maybe there's some areas you don't even know that are available to you in that area. But budgeting is essential. I mean, if I just went on a vacation, my wife and I been married over 50 years. We still budget for vacation, make sure that money's there. If it isn't there, then we don't go. So I think the biggest thing in budget, if you don't have the money, then you don't spend it. If you don't have the money set aside, then you don't spend it, because then you're spending somebody else's money that you don't have and not yours.
Do you have any special tips on how you specifically budget? Like, is it setting money aside into a separate account? Is it just being more aware of what that money's earmarked for?
Long time. We started out using the envelopes.
Okay.
The envelope system. And now it's just, we've done it for so long. It's just how we do life.
Okay.
Is budgeting. But yeah, we have a savings account that we use for vacations or other things, or I put money aside for the next car, so that when it comes time for that car.
So you're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Right. You're sitting down planning budget. Hey, I'm going to need a car in a year or 2 years.
Correct.
And then you start earmarking money specifically for that need. Right.
And having an emergency fund, where you can set aside, you come back and, you're in a car wreck or something else takes place on your house, having that money set aside, or I've got to go to the dentist tomorrow. So, I have to have money set aside to meet that need.
I have a question.
Yes.
I laugh because you mentioned the envelope system,
Yes.
Yes.
and I just learned somebody in my church does that.
Mhm.
I laugh because what happens in case of a fire? What happens in case of a robbery?
S-
Um,
So
with the envelope system,
Well-
because they literally what they do is they cash their paycheck and they literally split the paycheck into envelopes. This
Mhm.
week I'm going to pay
So
this.
Mildred kind of beat me to that because I was going to ask you to maybe elaborate a little bit more on the envelope method as well. Are you literally taking envelopes and
that.
putting cash in there?
Yes, when years ago we did that. We had the envelopes, and quite frankly, Mildred, I never thought about a fire. I just thought about budgeting it, but now you can do it electronically. You can set aside,
So-
those
so
go
That's what I wanted to
if you
have you
can open a
elaborate.
bank account.
Yes, yeah. If you can't open a bank account, then you really need a budget to where you can get to that point
Hmm.
where you have that. But many times, and the problem now is everything we do by credit card or debit card. When you take cash and you go to Starbucks and it's $8 for a cup of coffee, whatever your drink is, there's a mental process that happens versus giving a card, because a card really isn't money.
Hmm.
So I still do a lot of things cash. It's getting harder to use cash,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much more difficult to pull out your wallet and pull out cash and watch it disappear than just a card is, and then a month later you get your
bill.
statement and it's like,
Yeah.
wow. So I still, at this age, as much as possible, use cash.
Really? That's
Yes.
But
interesting.
how does that build? I mean, we're talking about financial literacy, and we talked about credit and how your credit score is attached to everything you do. If you only use cash, how do you build your credit? My kids, for example, are ones that love to use cash.
Mm-hmm.
How can my 20-year-old build credit if she's constantly using cash? Because no credit equals bad credit.
Exactly.
Having no credit at all
Right.
is
Can be just as bad as bad credit.
could be worse than having bad credit, because at least with bad credit, somebody took a chance
Mm-hmm.
and allowed you to borrow money. And at one point, you probably made monthly payments on time. Hardships happen. But when you use cash,
Yep.
and that's why a lot of students get hung up when it comes time to graduation, because they're trying to build credit by applying for credit cards just to
Right.
get something, because they've been taught to just use cash. So how do you
So-
help somebody like that?
So do you mind? I'll jump in on
Yeah,
that
go
one because I just had this experience, and this was not even by a kid. I had a middle-aged man recently, a client of mine, very well off, but he's always lived by the method that I pay for everything in cash. Right? He's found himself in a situation where he's still got plenty of stuff, but it's all invested, it's all tied up at the moment, and he needs some cash for some stuff. So we were talking about doing a loan for him, and in this situation, what I was nervous of is, well, that's great, but what happened? What is his credit going to be like? Because if it comes back as no credit, it's still difficult to get a loan, if at all. So we got it, 800 credit score, perfectly fine. Asked him about it, it never even crossed my mind, but credit cards. So in his mind, he's never borrowed money, right? He's never got a home loan. He's never got anything because he's always been able to financially support himself via cash. But that doesn't change the fact that he's using credit cards to make his purchase. And if we go back to the episode, we were talking about credit, and I was talking about, I believe, using a credit card in the right way and disciplined is a great thing. Where, there's other financial gurus out there that will tell you, like, stay away from credit cards. Using a credit card, you make that purchase, it's still building your credit. Just be disciplined enough to have the money sit in your bank account to pay that credit card at the end of the month. If you pay it off each month in full, you're not paying interest, so you're not paying any extra money, but it is building credit. So that would be my advice, is that even though we may not have the larger things, we got to build up. If we want to buy our houses, we want to buy the cars, things like that via credit. A credit card is where you start for doing that.
Paying down a credit card, because I just experienced this with myself and my daughters. When we you know, pay down our credit cards. They shut you down. It's bad than paying your credit card on a timely manner. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what I don't understand what you're
So,
saying there.
with credit cards, this is what the credit card company says.
Mm-hmm.
When you pay your credit card off or down low, then they're not making money off of you.
See, that's a common misconception. I would get that all the time at the bank. Oh, the bank doesn't like me because I pay my credit card off in full each month. That's not true.
That's what this is the credit card company saying this. Don't pay your credit cards to the lowest. Leave some money there because that way it helps you to make you pay your payments, on a monthly basis. But to me, it's because they want that interest payment.
Well, I would say
I would, yeah. I've never heard
not my
of a bank. My banks I've worked for that are large, some of the largest credit card providers. I would never hear that come out of the mouth. People have come to me with the misconception that, well, hey, I've heard that I have to carry a balance on here each month because if I pay it off in full, that doesn't help my credit. The credit card company is looking, are you using the money and are you paying it back? Okay. Paying it in full is still a payment. That's counting as a payment made to the credit card. And the credit card company, yes, it is true. If you pay interest, it's more money to them, but they're still making money just by you using that credit card. You going and swiping that credit card, they get a percentage of that, just like you swiping your debit card. So they're still making money from you. The interest is just a bonus on top of that for those that don't pay it off.
But that's if you're using it.
If you're using it,
but
correct.
If you pay it off or pay it down and then don't use the card,
so
then
is
you're
this
not using
that okay? That's why I wanted to make sure I was understanding your question, because yes, if you're not utilizing the credit card and it's not a month or two, I mean, it's if you haven't used it 2-3 years, whatever they deem, there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just review these accounts. Then yes, you'll get a letter in the mail saying your credit card hasn't been utilized within a certain period of time. They'll typically give you, hey, if you want to keep this credit card line open, utilize it. If you don't, then they'll close it. Because even though you're not using it, it still costs the bank money to maintain that account, right? Through having to send out new cards, statements, and whatever else goes on back behind the scenes. It costs a company money to maintain an account that's not being used. That's where that comes into play. But if you're using the card on a regular basis, if you just go and, hey, we talked about in the credit episode, just use it for your need, gas, groceries, whatever. You're still using it periodically. If you have one of the cash back rewards cards, you're making money by using it, but then pay it off in full each month with the money that is sitting in your bank account that you didn't use.
Right.
But all this takes discipline, right? Where people get away from themselves, they use the credit card for the gas and the groceries, and then they use the cash in their account for the non-essential things that they need because it's sitting there. And then come time to pay the credit card, they pay half of it off. Now they're paying interest. Now they've gotten into that. So good questions there. But around the envelope thing, I want to go back to that thing. I want to make sure, are you still actually using envelopes or not? You answered that question. Being in the banking world where I would see people budget like that is not necessarily envelopes, but it's kind of the same thing. They would open multiple savings accounts for different purposes, right? This accounts for this accounts for this account. It's still the envelope method, but it's electronically safer in the bank. The fire, all that stuff, we don't have to worry about that because of that coming from the banking world. And we talked about initially in the first episode, I'm a believer in the bank account. It's insured through the bank. In your house, it's not. I would never encourage somebody to keep, especially large amounts of money around the house for any reason, unless it's the fact that somebody has a hard time, managing their accounts and now they're getting fees and things like that. But I would have to think that most times those people aren't the ones with a large amount of money in their house, right? Those are the ones living paycheck to paycheck. And if a bank account's not the right thing because you're constantly overdrawing it, it's constantly charging you money for it, then maybe working off cash for a while to get caught back up is a good idea for you.
Well, and I think to go back to that, I use a credit card hugely, but there's a certain amount of money for the incidentals that I take cash for. And those are the things, Mildred, the Starbucks, the things like that I am, the things that I'm doing every day, gas, groceries, those kind of things, we're going to put them on a credit card. I'm talking about the incidentals, that going out to eat, those kind of things would be the things I would do cash on. Everything else, because I really use my credit card statement in my business to see what that's how I keep track of my expenses. So to me, it's a good tool. I can go back and look how I spent my money on that, or for tax purposes. I can each month look at what categories. So I use a credit card regularly, but it's paid off every month. It never goes beyond that month.
Yeah. So good. Conversation just kind of came out naturally there, which was kind of my intention here. Because got ahead of ourselves. I was just going to ask, what takeaways did we have from some of our subjects, and we just
Well, I
kind
wanna
of just
make it clear
rattled some
that
of them off.
For anybody that I don't have a lot of cash in my house, just to make sure that doesn't come out that way. If you come to my house, you're not going to find cash hidden all over the place. Just want to clear that up, right?
Yes. You have enough just to go
Public
out to eat
service
dinner that
announcement.
night.
Yes, I go to the bank to get my cash.
Yeah. Mildred, any takeaways from any of our episodes? The banking, the credit, the budgeting, savings.
Well, the first one, obviously for me, and for a lot of our community, is the importance of financial literacy and the why we need to learn about our finances and how banking works and just how everything comes together in life, how that is important, and how it can allow you to take control of your life, because, money makes the world go round.
Absolutely. Yes. So having get some feedback from the both of you, Mark, especially with dealing with, maybe some people with financial hardships through the church and things like that. When we talk about the importance of financial literacy, what do we think the issue is when it comes to like the impoverished community or those that are struggling financially? Is it a lack of knowledge? Is it bad decision making? Where do we think that struggle comes from?
Well, I mean, it can be just lack of funds. There's not enough coming in for what's come up. Then you have to find those organizations that can help you through that tough time. But many times, if it's not that, it's just choices. It's bad choices, because I want that. And a credit card makes that possible. But then, the statement comes in, and that desire that you cashed in on, you can't afford. And so that's what I see many times is, I wanted that, Mark. I wanted to go to Disneyland, but they came back. They had a car wreck. They had no emergency fund. So there they sat, and as a pastor, I had to say, our whole congregation, a lot of them would like to go to Disneyland. But when you go and then you come back and you ask the rest of us to pick up for your lack of discipline. So it's, we run towards what we see. If we don't have a plan, we're just out here nebulously doing things. That's what gets us into trouble. So, educating yourself, seeking out the right people, and then having a plan that you can run towards or look at, because we're looking at here, that's what we run towards, is a plan, is goals. And so if you have those, and there's plenty of places to get help to do that, but our whole life is about choices, good or bad.
So do you think that those that have financial difficulties and issues, there is no plan? It's troubles following that plan?
Well, I think it's two things. It can be two things. Very few people have a plan, realistically. I mean, we talk to people. I have people make a lot of money that don't have a plan. They're saying, they make $300,000 and they don't have a plan. Where did it all go, Mark? And there's other people, just living paycheck to paycheck that don't have a plan either. So you don't have a plan. That's a scriptural thing. Without a vision, people perish. So without a plan.
When you say plans, say equals goals?
Yeah, plans would be goals. Yeah. I mean, that's
you want to
what
buy a
plan
house,
is.
you want to buy a car, like you mentioned earlier, is you're planning a year or two ahead of time if you need a car or something new so you can start saving now.
And all the things we talked about, Ryan, are freedom. A plan is freedom. Getting to financial freedom. A plan is freedom. I think many people, I don't want a budget. Budget is freedom. It's knowing where every dollar goes, and that frees you up to make the purchase you want to make.
Do you think that some people fear budgets because they don't want to know where that money's going?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
That's accountability.
You
We
think
don't
that-
want to be
you think
held
Going,
up.
or they don't have enough to cover.
They don't have enough
the
to cover,
things
and they're just,
on the budget.
yeah.
So it could be a lot of different.
Because they know that they got those habits out there that they could cut back on, but if they put that on paper and put a budget together, they're going to have to admit to themselves, I got to stop doing this if I want to reach this goal. Now, what's more important, my habit or my goal? right?
So my daughter last night, she wanted me to see her create her budget. And I'm thinking, she's young. She's not 21 yet. I thought it was a electronic thing. But here she is with a notebook and she writes down how many paychecks she's going to get, what is her estimate, and she makes a list, um, Uber, DoorDash, groceries. And I'm like, DoorDash? She was like, Mom, I like to eat out. And that's part of her budget. And she still has, I mean, with the little bit of money that she does make, she's like, okay, so now I have this much money to do extra stuff if I want to buy something that I want. But it just was
Did-
weird to me that she would put
Budget for
DoorDash
DoorDash.
on there, Uber because she doesn't
Different.
drive. And
So that was going to be my question. Does she have a car? Does she have the
no,
means to drive?
she-
That's why she's
she-
relying on Uber.
She does.
right?
She is Daisy from Driving Miss Daisy. She either wants somebody to drive her around, like a Uber. She won't take public transportation.
So she's paying a little bit extra for the Uber for the delivery, but she's saving that money from car expenses, gas, things like that.
Correct.
So money's being managed that way. Because that's the same thing. Like difference in generations. I know people with cars and they still order Uber just because they don't want to leave the house. And it's like I would never do that.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
I don't even like
Cook.
getting delivery to the house
Right.
because then I gotta tip and all that stuff where I could just run down the street and get the pizza and come home myself. But difference in generations. I've never used Uber in my life. I don't know that I ever would.
I
Unless
just
I
thought
found
it was-
myself in a situation I could not go somewhere. Even then, I think I would still just eat at home.
Just to see her do that.
But yeah, putting it down.
She's adulting, and I have another one. She's like, I hate, this adulting thing really sucks. And I start laughing. They were talking to each other, and I'm, on the other side just laughing because children are so quick to want to leave the house. I want to be an adult. I hate these rules. And then the first time that they have to pay a bill, or that hospital bill from that emergency room comes in, and it's like, how am I supposed to pay this? Oh, you want to be grown? This is what grown people do. And they wonder, Mom, how did you do this? How did you
Now they're
so
looking for your advice.
education is so important, not only to tell them and guide them like a teacher, but to show them in how you're living and how you're maneuvering with your money. So
But that's awesome that she is actually sitting down and taking it to heart and actually realizing, what it was that you did, or looking for your advice now as an adult to help with
man,
this stuff.
on the
that
calendar and
before she'd probably,
everything.
Mom, can you buy me this? And,
Yeah, it's great. So I was very, very proud of her.
That's
doing
awesome.
that.
That's
Well,
good to hear.
You're
Yeah.
adulting because you're teaching your girls. Because I see a bigger problem with, you got children still living at home that haven't been taught anything.
Mhm.
They're just still, mom and dad are still picking up everything. They're not working. They're not
So-
doing anything.
So this is a good segue into something that on our second episode around banking, Chris had mentioned about, bringing your kids into the bank with you. And I didn't get really a chance to elaborate on that, but I'm a big proponent of that coming from the bank is, how are we going to ever teach our kids the importance of having a banker or having that mentor to learn about the banking system if we're doing everything for them? The banks in today's world, technology-wise, they're trying to, get people out of the branches, right? I don't want to say get them out because it doesn't sound great,
Right.
but they just understand that today's youth prefer things technology-wise, right? They don't see the advantage of coming in. So there's no point in having all these branches and having all these people when they're not being utilized. I still think there's a chance that, especially if parents get on board, that you bring them into the bank, you get them to build that relationship so they can see the importance of it. Or else we're going to sit around 20 years from now and the next generation, when they're adults, won't see the benefit of having a banking mentor or having a relationship with the bank because they never had one.
Right.
We still have that. We still have an opportunity to do that. So instead of coming in and handling the things for your kids, right, bring them in with you or send them in on their own. Say, you
Right.
need to go talk with my banker. You need to talk with so-and-so on there. Go handle it and figure it out on your own. I'm a big proponent of that, right?
I think
Let's teach them the importance of
Yeah,
that.
relationships are important.
Absolutely.
I mean, just what you're saying is so important. Find somebody that you can trust that can mentor you, or you can just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I got this financial question. Whether it's your banker, it may be a financial advisor, it may be your tax person. Find somebody that you can talk to before you do something and make a mistake, but say, hey, what if I buy this? How's this going to work tax-wise? Or how's this going to affect me? relate, and that's what you're saying. The problem with going the direction we're going, relationships
That's it.
are disappearing,
Correct.
and you need those.
Yes,
You know,
we still
otherwise
see
you're
the
just
value in
searching
those
online.
relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're searching online, and you can get bad advice online. But
Right.
having somebody that you can look a spit and sputtering human being
Mm-hmm.
that you can meet with is huge.
Yeah,
And there's some
absolutely.
young people that would prefer. My youngest is like that. You know, I tell her, just call the bank. She just recently lost her wallet. I said, call the bank.
You didn't do it for it, right?
No.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
she's
good.
like, Mom, I need to go to the bank. I
Mhm.
want them to see my
Mhm.
face. But,
Mhm.
you know, without having an ID or anything like that, it's kind of hard to call somebody over the phone. They don't know if
Mhm.
it's really you. So she's old school. She wants to go and talk to somebody and so they can
Yeah.
see.
And while that's awesome to hear, it's also sad to say that that's an old school way,
Yeah.
right? That should be the
Unfortunately,
way,
yeah.
I believe, right? But we talked about the banking, the credit system, information, the budgeting, all that stuff. But we're providing some tools for our listeners, to help with that learning and understanding of the financial system for financial literacy. But what it all comes down to is we can provide you all the tools in the world, but if we don't change our mindset, right, figure out what is important to us, what are our goals, and then having some accountability with that, with our decision making, right? It's not the bank's fault, it's not so and so's fault. It's our money, it's our job. Our accountability is to manage our money well. And then also discipline, right? So
Yeah.
the mindset, the accountability, and the discipline. If you're not exercising all three of those, these tools are pointless,
Right.
right? I'm a big baseball guy, so an analogy with that is people in baseball world always say you can go buy a $500 bat, but if you got a $100 swing, it's not going to help you whatsoever. Right. So
Good.
we can provide you all the tools in the world to do this and the information. And the stuff that we're talking about here is not groundbreaking information. You can find this information anywhere out
Right.
there. We're just hoping to bring it to our listeners. But you can find this information, right? You can Google this information. You can do it. But it's your mindset. You have to want to change your current financial situation, or you have to want to understand and make yourself educated for your future.
Yeah.
And then you have to hold yourself accountable to making wise decisions with your money and exercising that discipline to get to your goals. Right. So, anything to add to that?
I think when I was younger, I remember reaching a point where I thought my parents ought to help me, or that I thought other people, since I was having a financial problem, should help me.
Mm-hmm.
I got a financial problem and I need help. And all of a sudden,
Help you with the education or with the money?
finances. Yeah, you're not thinking education.
Yeah,
you're
you-
thinking I need
I
money.
need bailed out.
You need to help me. You got money. I need help. Why wouldn't you give me money?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my parents looking at me and saying, you got a poverty mentality. You need to step up, change your life, and take responsibility. And that was huge for me in not looking around at everybody that had money, because my dad had money because he did a good job getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I'll never forget when my son moved out and said, well, Dad, you got 2 microwaves. Can I have one? I said, you know how you get 2 microwaves? You save money
Mm-hmm.
and you buy them. So you go do that and you'll have 2 microwaves. No, I'm not giving you my microwave. And he was upset with me, but later he said, Dad, thank you.
Yeah, I've worked since the time I was able to work at 15 and a half, something like that. I haven't taken a dime from my parents since I moved out of the house at 19 years old. There's
Right.
been times where I could have asked them and I'm sure they would have done it, but
Right.
that was just my mentality. I do not ever want to have to ask somebody for money, right? I know they're there if I'd ever need them, but I'm going to figure it out, whether it's through a job change or whatever, to better my financial situation without having to burden somebody else. They work hard for their money. I believe they should be able to utilize that for what they need. We talked last time about treating yourself and how somebody might, how could they ever say that you're selfish for treating yourself? Are those the same people that are saying you're selfish for treating yourself because they think you should spend that money on them?
Right.
Is that not the selfish mindset? You should spend your money on me. Think about that concept. Right. It's selfish of you to spend your money on you, but you should spend it on me.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are organizations that are there to help people. I think taking advantage, if you're in a bad place, that's why it's good to have mentors. Where can I go? We just had an unexpected problem here that, we can't we can't swing. So there are organizations to get help, and I think take advantage of those, because it's many of those organizations are saying we're here to keep you from spiraling into poverty. We'll help you in this time get back on your feet, so then you can, be self-sufficient,
Awesome.
not
So-
totally dependent.
So, yeah, there's a lot of resources in the community. The downside to that, I notice, is when these organizations are ran through grants, and then you have people who don't want to educate themselves, who just want to utilize other people's money until, excuse the expression, until they suck them dry. And then those people who do fall into hardship, now these organizations have no money to help those people. So there's people out there who do take advantage of the situation. So
Yeah, there's people that aren't going to change their mentality.
Yeah.
And,
Once again,
yeah,
right? Our mentality.
mindset.
Accountability, and discipline. So, wrapping up today, because our time is up here, that brings to conclusion the financial literacy series. But that doesn't stop our show. Our show will be back next week, same time, 8:30 on Wednesday. We'll dive in a little bit deeper on some of these topics and add some other content to this as well. But the first episodes, we're going to kind of touch on the few areas. What is financial literacy? Banking, our credit system, and then some tips around budgeting and savings that hopefully everybody can take away now and maybe start to implement. And then the information that we provide week to week can help build upon that. So once again, Mark Ellington, DR Financial, thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Mildred
for having
Lopez,
Thank
this is
you.
Our Neutral Voices. Peace.
happy.